Hi there, I'm Suleiman with Suleiman Films, and I'm here to talk about our latest project, A Simple Job. This project was created as part of the 48-Hour Film Project, this time hosted in Baltimore, Maryland. If you're unfamiliar with the 48-Hour Film Project, it's where you have to shoot a film within a weekend where you get required elements including a line of dialogue, a character, and a prop that you have to include within your film. Alright, so after a kickoff where we got our required elements in our genres, we had to actually start writing the script. When it came to writing, Johnny, Ryan, and I met with Andres Meja, an independent filmmaker in Baltimore, and we got to writing. So initially we had a few different ideas that we wanted to try out, but they didn't really land. The first one that we thought of was kind of two criminals meet up and their plans go south. Another was kind of a assassination plot that went wrong, and we were picking up at the end, kind of an In Bruges style comedy drama. And that one didn't really land either. Eventually what we did land on was a story where, kind of like Fargo, where two criminals kidnap somebody and then things kind of go south from there. What really helped with this time around was we had two actors, Patrick Borlick and Anthony Lanzano, who had extensive background with stunt work and with a lot of fight choreography. So I knew how I wanted the film to end, and that's in a big climactic fight between the two actors, but we actually had to get to the rest of the script first. So once we had that ending in mind, we actually sat down and then we had our sort of core story idea in mind, and then we got to writing that script. Around midnight or so, we called it a night. Johnny and I woke up early the next morning, put some finishing touches on it, and then called the writing process a day. So after a late night and an early morning, we had the script finished and we were ready to film. Before we talk about filming, I do want to highlight some of our pre-production elements and a few different things that we tried this time around. The first one was we actually wanted to have an original song and an original score, and so Johnny had a friend named Brittany who partnered with her partner Dak, and over the course of the weekend they wrote and composed an original song which we included in the film as well as the end credits, and I'm really happy with how it turned out, and I think it's one of those small touches that really help sell the overall film itself. Patrick, our actor, once again doubled up as a producer. This time around he helped find our location, our younger actress Gianna, and then he and Anthony worked a few weekends before the shoot to really hone in what they wanted to do with the actual fight scene itself. Oh, and on the topic of music, a shameless plug, but Brittany is actually a member of a band, so I'll leave the link to her Spotify in the description below, so check them out. Alright, so with our cast, location, and story all set, as well as their original music underway, Johnny and I left bright and early that morning to get to set. So the first thing that we did was unpack Ryan's gear with the help of Syed, our assistant camera and gaffer. And then while that was going on, Johnny met with the actors and we did a little bit of a table read that was kind of more a stand outside around a car read. And we got sort of the tone that we were envisioning a little more ironed out, and then once we had that ready, we were able to start shooting our first scene. One of the things that was very useful this time around was using any downtime that we had to actually choreograph and plan out the fight scene. Since we knew that was going to be sort of the biggest moving piece of this whole production with a lot of different elements, we wanted to make sure that by the time we actually had to shoot it, we had all those pieces in place to really help smooth out the whole process. So anytime we had some downtime, Johnny and I met with Patrick and Anthony and we planned out the fight scene a little bit more. It ended up being a process of writing each individual movement down so we had it completely listed out, and then Anthony and Patrick were able to kind of hone what they were thinking. We went downstairs where we were shooting the bulk of the short, and then they would go back and forth sort of roughly telling me what they wanted to do, where they would end up, and the whole process became a lot smoother as a result. And I think that really helped speed up the pace once we actually got to filming the fight scene itself. For our exterior scene, it was relatively quick. We shot two scenes, one from the trunk's POV and then another with Anthony and Patrick looking in at Gianna as she's bound in the trunk itself. For the POV of the trunk, we did a little bit of a Ryan special. Initially I was like, all right, we can just put the camera in there and have it rest and use our external monitors, but Ryan went the extra mile and got in the trunk himself, so I appreciate Ryan's dedication for this. All right, so our lighting setup was a little simple this time, but only on the surface. So we had 2 lights pointing in from outside through the windows that we had in the basement, a 3rd light in the stairwell that was pointing down, and that really helped with some of the dramatic elements involving Patrick as he's coming and going. And then we had an infinity bar light, which is kind of my favorite light to use. That was our main key light, and that was behind the talent, and that was sort of pointing down. And since it's lightweight, we were able to really move it around as needed. So that was great. And then we had another light that was pointing above Gianna that was pointing down on her, kind of adding to that dramatic tension with her character. And then we had 3 practical lights in the form of lamps with Govee light bulbs that we were able to control. And those were in, I think it was behind and then on either side. So that helped again with that kind of like cinematic lighting. And then for the rest of the crew, we had Jay on sound and then Gail as a production assistant, and she also captured a lot of the behind the scenes footage that you're seeing on screen now. Alright, and one other thing that I was very excited about for this film was our lens choice. So we used the DZO Film Arcanas, which are a 1.5 times anamorphic lens with kind of a 2 times anamorphic effect. And so ever since these got announced, I was really excited, and Johnny and I picked them up a couple of months ago in New York City. And so this was our first real big project that we actually got to put them to the test with. And I think they look incredible, really giving our film that kind of cinematic feel that you might not necessarily see in another 48. So I think that's great. Of course, using anamorphic lenses does require a little bit of extra steps when it comes to editing. So our editor Shay had to de-squeeze the footage and then make a couple of other setting adjustments to ensure that everything comes out looking great. All right, so with the story beats covered, all that remained was the ending and the fight scene, which we knew was going to be our biggest to do. With all our prep work earlier that day, we still had to work out some of the logistics, such as where to use our broom prop and then how to actually film it with a correct flow. And so what we did was we shot it once with Anthony's perspective all the way through, another time with Patrick's perspective all the way through, and then we went back with kind of an insert shot or those bigger moment shots and then piece those in the editing process. And I think it looks great, and it really sells some of those effects very well. And for those insert shots, we use those mostly for the really big moments, such as Anthony getting his head slammed into the pool table, or Anthony slammed against the wall, or Anthony being slammed on the floor. There was a lot of Anthony getting slammed around, but it was all safe because Anthony and Patrick have a lot of experience with this, so we used crash pads for anything that involved getting thrown to the floor. And then for those moments where they were actually hitting each other, that was just more camera magic and then them selling the effect. So everything was safe and well done. Oh, and Gianna, our kidnapping victim, also was able to land a hit in on Patrick, so she helped save the day too. Jessica, our production manager and producer, stepped in as a makeup artist this time around too. We initially hadn't planned on doing any makeup, but I'm glad we did. Jessica did a really good job with the wound effects, and I think it really helps sell the damage that our 2 actors were doing to each other over the course of this fight. So I'm glad it worked out. All right, so with our ending in mind, we were able to have Gianna escape. We did a little bit of stunt driving with Patrick behind the wheel. And then we were able to call it a wrap. So once we got home, Johnny and I organized the footage, got it to Shay, our editor, and then the next day she delivered a rough cut around 2 p.m. And then we gave some feedback, and then she gave us a more finalized version around 6:30 or so. And then she made a few last minute touches after we were able to submit 1 copy. And then we submitted the final cut close to 7:15. So we had about 15 minutes to spare. But all in all, the project was a success, and we were happy to call another 48 done. We still had to finish up all the paperwork, but all in all, it was a very smooth weekend, and I'm very happy with how the film turned out. And I can't wait to share it with you all very soon. Thanks for watching.